This wasn't the start that I wanted. Oh, I've goofed bad. I have stuffed up bad, man. So the tank for the VK Commodore, we've been trying to get it clean, and for the past while I've been working on it, just on and off when I have free time and stuff like that. And I got it clean, but I wasn't super happy with it, right? So I thought, I'm gonna go a step further. I really want to fill the thing with some sort of rust converter and just really just properly get into all the bits and pieces, because I was having issues where the two halves of the tank, where they connect. I was having issues with stuff getting stuck in there. So I bought a whole bunch of citric acid, which is it acts as a rust converter. It's just a bit slow, but that's fine. I left it in the tank for 2.5 days, and it did wonders. It honestly was fantastic, the result. Now there's still some flash surface rust in there that just happened instantaneously. We're not going to be able to avoid that. I don't have the equipment to avoid that. But it turned out fantastic. So I rinsed it out a couple times with some water. I've then rinsed it a few times with petrol. Now I'm trying to wait for it to dry. So I let it dry overnight, and it still wasn't dry enough. So I before I had rinsed it out with petrol, I was drying it then with a heat gun, and I had no dramas. The tank got pretty warm, but I had no dramas. I don't know if it's the petrol or if I've just pointed the gun the wrong direction. But do you remember that little plastic tank that's inside this fuel tank? I've melted it. I've melted it. So we've spent now a few $100 trying to save this fuel tank, and we've gotten so close. Like, there's like little bits of moisture still in there that we need that to dry out, and then we can put tank sealer in. But I've melted the plastic tank. Oh. That sucks. I don't think it's worth. I'm gonna have to look into it. I don't know if it's gonna be worth to try and separate the tank, or if it's gonna be worth trying to. I'm not gonna be able to dig out that tank, so it's just gonna be. I did not want to fork out $1,200 for a new tank. I thought this one was salvageable, and it is, or it was. This is a rather unfortunate turn of events, isn't it? Yeah, a bit crap, all because I didn't sit there and think that the heat gun might melt the inside of the tank if I point it directly at it. So that's quite unfortunate. However, I do not think all is lost. From what I've gathered, the tank that sits in here, that plastic tank that we've melted, it acts as, I think it's got something to do with EFI, which is what these top ports are here for, which are just blocked off because we don't have an EFI system, we've got a carburetor. And it also acts as a baffle for when you're cornering and making sure you still have fluid when you're going around corners. That being the case, I think we can push on and keep using this tank. It doesn't interfere with the float, it doesn't interfere with the pickup, and this isn't a track car, and Australia, especially Adelaide, we've got pretty flat, pretty straight roads, so I don't think it'll be an issue. And that being the case then, we're gonna work on finishing this then, which means we can seal it, because now inside everything's dry. It's not as rust free as I would like, but it's all just surface rust. So if we seal that in with some tank sealer, we're not gonna have any dramas at all, which will be fantastic. So we'll do that, but before I can do that, there's actually more to this than the melted tank. I've managed to break off 2 nipples. Now, I don't quite know where these go to, these hose barbs, but I know they're on there and they were plugged into things beforehand, so we're gonna put them back into place. Fortunately, I've brought some more solder. I've brought some thicker stuff, not just electrical stuff, actual plumbing solder, so hopefully it's a bit of a stronger join. We'll make sure it's sealed properly. I've never done anything like this, so it'll be an interesting first attempt. So I reckon we grind down these bits where I've just put on some gasket maker and then do some soldering. Should be pretty straightforward. Okay, where's your ball? I'll throw it for you.
We bought this old rusty Commodore what feels like a lifetime ago, all for the purpose to teach me paint and panel, and yet we still haven't been able to see if it runs and drives, or even if it's worth restoring. This original plan I had of quickly doing a service so I can drive it around in the hopes to discover any hidden problems has quickly dissolved into a far larger task than I had originally imagined.
Doesn't exactly look pretty. I reckon it's sealed.
We've replaced the water pump, the thermostat, fuel pump, nearly all the hoses. We've rebuilt the carb twice and pulled it apart several more times. The auto choke has been replaced, all the fluids have been checked, and then we discovered the fuel tank was in a horrific state. But now we know. We know why the carb has had an inconsistent idle. We know why the fuel filter keeps getting clogged. And it looks like we can fix it.
Right. Tank sealer top. So, all the holes are now plugged. So we should be able to pull this in and have no dramas.
Much like the feeling I got with my John Goss, it finally feels like we're getting somewhere. It feels like we are on the last leg of this journey, and we are so close to the start line of this restoration in earnest. But first, before we get our hopes up, let's get this tank in and plumb it up.
So everything's now coated. We've managed to get a 500ml bottle throughout everything. It just made it. Ideally, I probably would have used 1 litre or even maybe 2.5 litres and then poured out the excess. This took me about an hour to encase the whole thing, or the inside of the thing, to cover all the surfaces. It was just barely enough to coat the inside of it. Anyway, we've done it now, which is fantastic. So now we're going to give the outside of the tank a clean to get it ready for paint. I've got to scrape off some of this older rubber that's been hanging around for far too long. So we'll clean all that up and then go over with a bit of methylene spirits and give her a spray paint, and then we've got to wait 4 days, I believe it is, before the tank sealer is set. And then it can go on the tank and be all good to go back in the car rather, and we can fill it up with fuel and give it a test. Looking forward to it. First, let's clean all this up, which is proper caked on there. So while we're waiting for our fuel tank to sort itself out, we're going to tackle something here in the engine that makes me feel kind of stupid. We've been having issues with the idle of this engine, and a lot of that's because carb, a lot of that's because we've been sucking up crappy fuel, a lot of that's because I set the choke up incorrectly, so it hasn't been doing anything properly. There is something else too, though, that I didn't consider, and it now makes me feel like kind of an idiot. This engine hasn't been ran for at least a decade now, and potentially longer. And throughout our service and replacing everything, I did not once consider to replace the spark plugs. Now look, unlikely it's going to solve our issue. I imagine the spark plugs are just fine. However, it's probably worthwhile doing. So we're going to replace them, pull them out, see how bad they are, see if all the cylinders are equally consistent, sorry. And if there's not, well then we got to start looking into things further. But yes, we're going to replace the spark plugs because we should.
Now Now, as we come closer to the day where we pull this all apart and get truly ready for the restoration, we need to consider what the plan is, as I really don't have one. My whole scheme was to buy a car for cheap, learn to paint and do all the bodywork, and be able to sell it at a price where I'd break even. The minutiae between all that, I have no idea.
Spark plugs have now all been replaced, and honestly, don't look that bad. They've definitely got a bit of soot build up on them, but it's not anything major, to be honest with you. The cylinders 1 and 6, they definitely had an oily spark plugs, but that's because we've got a rocker cover leak, so that's to be expected. What was interesting is spark plugs 4 and 5, there was this bit of what almost looks like dried coolant build up around them. I hope that doesn't refer to head gasket. We did have a lot of similar looking corrosion on one of our battery terminals when I had the old battery in there. It could be something like that. It's very odd. There's not a lot of it, and we obviously found no coolant when we drained the oil out of it when we swapped the oil. Overall, these aren't too bad. So I don't think that's our idle related problem. I honestly think most of it's fuel and my stuff up with the choke. Now we're just gonna wait on the fuel tank, and then we can reassemble everything and hopefully get it on out of here. Okay, the fuel tank is painted and prepped and done, and it looks really quite good actually, inside and out. It looks fantastic. So now we just got to plumb up all the hoses. There was a few breather hoses and bits and pieces scattered around it, so we're going to plumb all those up, install the fuel sender, and then whack her into the car. So let's cut some hoses.
Now, I'm personally thinking of keeping this factory colour, and if we are keeping the original theme, keeping this motor too. Especially because I've never worked on a pushrod 6 before, and I'd like to change that. But that being said, V8s are readily available for these, and building one isn't that dear. Though I must say a triple Weber 6 does sound like a pretty cool idea too, and it would be lighter than a V8. But we aren't exactly going for performance here. However, we do certainly need to give this car some appeal to make sure it's a quick sale, so we can move on to the next bad purchase.
That sucks. I'm still not done. Not fun, but it is done. And all the breathers are sorted, everything's all nice. I did have to adjust some of the hoses that I put on the tank whilst it was on the table, just because they had interference issues and stuff like that. So I had to make some adjustments there. But other than that, I've also bled the brakes, so they're all good. Now, I'm gonna fill it with fuel and see what it's gonna be like. Hopefully it starts, hopefully it runs okay. The tune's gonna be all kinds of whacked up, because we've now tried to tune it with issues with sucking fuel into the carburetor and everything like that. And speaking of which, I've now got 2 fuel filters in the fuel line. One's a transparent one, so we can see what kind of fluid we're actually sucking up and see if there's any debris or anything in there. I think though, honestly, everything should be pretty groovy. Like the inside of this tank looks pretty damn good now with the tank sealer and everything in it. The pickup's all new. We've got new fuel filters. I haven't cleaned out the carb a 3rd time, but I'm hoping that should be all right. Fingers crossed at least. So I'll just dump 20 litres of fresh fuel into it and we'll try and start it. Riveting content this. I should come over and turn that camera off, because I'm just wasting battery, which is valuable, especially now because I forgot to charge you since we worked on the Tirana. That's my own fault. We have got plenty of coolant, bit of floaties in there, but you know, standard. Need to get you open. Ooh, choke's working. Sick. Okay. Fuel line's hooked up. Let's check oil. I never remember where the dipstick is on this thing. It is hidden away. Plenty of oil. Spark plug lids are all on. Let's turn it over. Right. I'm trying to get fuel into the... I'm indicating. You want to get fuel into the filters. Alright. Park. Handbrake. It's coming. It's actually some wheels aren't on. Check. Are we leaking? Do we have fuel yet? No, nothing yet. That's okay, that's okay. I'm not leaking out the fuel tank. No? Alright, let's keep going. For a fresh battery, it sounds like it's kind of not got a lot of voltage. Oh, we got fuel in the filter, in the first filter, alright. That's good news, good news. That must mean we're going to have fuel up here soon. That is good. Can I hear it? Can I hear the fuel? No, nothing yet. That's alright, that's alright. We're going to fill up the bowl. Alright. Plenty of fuel there. Not leaking anything yet. That sounds like fuel! Alright, now it just needs to fire. Come on, you know you want it. Come on. Come on. Alright, let's see if we can factory reset the carb after we've fiddled with it and go from there. It's a little high, but I did that! I got it to run! I don't know what I did, I was just sitting there fiddling with different screws, but it worked. That is sick, that is so fair. I'm going to get it up again. Okay. Alright. No throttle, see what it does. Oh, I might need to give it some throttle. Yeah. That's not too bad. Hey! Should we try and take it for a drive? Let's put some wheels on.
This drives staggeringly well. I really do hate to admit this because, well, one, it's a Holden, and two, I'm not meant to be getting attached to this car. I do not want to fall in love with it. We're going to sell it. We're going to restore the car and then get rid of it. I'm not meant to be growing attached. But it drives nice, man. Like, it's smooth, it's quiet, it's comfortable, the seating position's not bad. The steering is incredible, quite frankly. For what is meant to be a family wagon, the steering feels great. It loads up really nice. It's not a Lotus, it's not zippy, but it goes where you want to put it. You can enter a corner and leave it there. The car just, it wants to go where you tell it. It's not like the XB Falcons where when you hop into a corner, the car moves underneath you, almost like a dirt bike. Like you have to constantly adjust. This isn't like that. It's almost playful. It's really pleasant. I'm really enjoying driving it. It inspires a lot of confidence. There are downsides, of course. The bolstering cannot keep up. Like the seat, well, the lack of bolstering, I should say, cannot keep up with the corners and how much it inspires you. And the brake pedal could do with well, it's not very confidence inspiring. And the biggest drawback would have to be the power. It's not there. There's none of it. You flatten your foot, nothing happens. The power is down, and this is worse than the LX Tirana that we've got. And obviously this is heavier, but this is also a more modern version of the 202, so I would have hoped that it would be better. Now, it could be hemorrhaged by all the emission stuff, but a lot of that's bypassed at the moment, so I don't really know. Besides that though, this thing, it's fun. I really like it. I really like how well it drives. And I think it's a testament to it, quite frankly, because I realised after driving it for a little bit and realising this steering's quite nice, I didn't check any of the steering components. I didn't check the power steering reservoir. I didn't check it still had fluid. I didn't see what it felt like. I just left. And it works. It works really well. So, yeah, we're gonna have to be careful. We're gonna be careful we don't fall too much in love with it. But there is still lots to do before I think we will even consider something like that. And I have already noticed there is a couple of things a bit suspicious about this car that we didn't realise when we were working on it. For one, there's a noise coming from the back. It almost sounds like diff. I'm not too sure. It's a whining noise. Something doesn't sound healthy back there. Something's scraping, something's not in the right spot. So we'll have to address that. The power is also a concern. I don't know if it's a tune. I don't know if it's the engine's just tired. I'm not too sure, but we obviously need to give it some attention. On top of that, the tune is off. There's a rough idle. It starts up beautifully and it'll idle fine, but I do think I need to adjust the choke for these colder temperatures because it won't stay idling for any longer than about a minute or two, which is less than ideal. We've also got a lot of wind noise, but that is partially because most of the seals are not on the car anymore. They have vacated the chat, so we will have to address that as well. So I might just go through a tank or two, make sure everything's okay, make sure we don't have any more fueling issues, and then we'll put it in the shed and start pulling it to bits and prep it for paint. But until then, I'm gonna enjoy this tank or two that I'm gonna put through it and drive it around. It's so nice. Yeah. Shouldn't be this nice. It's a Holden. I'm not meant to like it. I don't like that I like it.
Need a drink.